Welcome to Return on Insights, the show where candid conversations with bold founders and leaders spark actionable insights for your business. I'm David Lindover.
And I'm Erin Abatangelo. Each week, we pull back the curtain with leaders who are scaling teams and shaping the future, sharing the insights that create impact far beyond the bottom line.
Discover how high-performing companies build enduring cultures, inspire teams to think bigger, and turn vision into action. If you see storytelling as your strategic advantage, you're in the right place. Hi, I'm David Lindover, your host for today's episode of Return on Insights podcast. Our guest today is Natalie Kaminski, co-founder and CEO of JetRockets, a company that focuses on building practical software solutions for non-tech founders, emphasizing real-world problem-solving over chasing the latest tech trends. Long before remote work became the norm, Natalie was already building high-performing distributed teams across borders and time zones. In today's episode, we explore what it really takes to lead a remote-first tech company, from building a culture of accountability to fostering open communication across continents. Natalie shares the leadership lessons, hiring principles, and communication strategies that have helped her create a company that scales globally while staying deeply human. Welcome, Natalie. Great to have you on today's show.
Thank you, David. I'm excited to be here.
So you've been a remote-first company for long before it was mainstream. So have I. What initially led you down that path? Talk to us about your journey.
Yeah, that's, as a matter of fact, I say, David, we've never been a non-remote first company. So I started in tech back when, if some of you listeners might still recall, Y2K was an issue, right? So back in 1998, I started my tech journey. I started out as a developer and spent the next 12 years working in the different ranks within the software development lifecycle until I decided to go out on my own around 2008, 2009. And my very first initiative that I decided to do as a freelancer at that time, because going out on my own at that time did not mean starting a company. It meant just go out and, stop working for a boss and get your own way of making the living. And I got my first project. And after succeeding with that project, and the project was primarily working as a product designer, kind of helping my client think about, architect, and design the product that he was going to build at that time. The client said, "Wow, you did such an amazing job. Can you help me build it now?" And immediately my response was, "Absolutely, I can." Even though at that time, I was out of skill in terms of as a developer, but also did not have any connections at that stage as, like developers or any team. But of course, my instinct led me to say yes. And the next thing I know, I met someone at a networking event, literally just a random person at a networking event, who ended up connecting me with my now co-founder and CTO. So, we met at an event. We got connected online with my co-founder and CTO. His name is Igor. And at that time, he just happened to live in Russia. Right? There was never a goal for me to find or to hire people in Eastern Europe. It just so happened. And by the way, it's a good segue to also mention that I was born in Soviet Union. I was raised in Ukraine, followed by a few years of growing up in Israel. So my journey was really international. I've always had this global, experience behind me. And when I got connected with Igor, the fact that he was overseas, the fact that he was in Russia, it kind of felt natural. Right. So we started working together. I hired him at that stage as a developer. And I basically asked him, "Hey, can you build this system I had designed?" And he was young. He was in his early 20s, hungry, very smart, very capable. And we really clicked. That relationship between, this working relationship, really, there was very good chemistry. And I remember the first 6-7 months of our working together, it was very much, I was sitting on my computer looking at Skype at that time. It was before Zoom, before all the latest tech. So it was Skype, and Igor was across the world. He was coding, I was testing, I was talking to the client. It was very, very much hands-on and very collaborative effort. So we started that whole, remote cross-continent global working environment, just the two of us. And we kind of made it work. It was really, really, it was very natural, very cohesive. After about 6 months or so, we realized that we needed help. And he enlisted one of his best friends with whom he went to college to come on board and help us continue development of that product that we were building at the time. So suddenly it was three of us. And then we needed more help. So we enlisted yet another person from his university. So now we had a team of 3 people. And by the way, that the third hire, her name is Julia. She stayed with JetRockets 11 more years after the fact. She only recently decided to move on to, another company. But it says a lot about the culture that we've accomplished to build, right? It's for somebody to stay around for 11 years. But, kind of moving forward, what happened at that time is once we successfully launched this product, we had more work line down the pipe because we got referrals and our clients started coming along, and we realized that we needed to grow the team. And I told Igor, I said, look, how about we partner on this thing together, right? So I'll pay you a little bit more than I've been paying you as a developer, so you can start growing the team and kind of managing the team, and it made sense. So things just kind of started to snowball from there. And before long, we rented an office space in Russia, and then we expanded into Ukraine as well. And of course, I'm talking all before the war, right? Like it was 2009, 2012 were kind of the years of that rapid growth. And from 2012, and pretty much for the next 10 years up until 2022, we had we've established a company with 3 locations across Eastern Europe. We had a team of 55 people at that time. And all of our clients were based in the US. And, the work was such that I'd be primarily kind of like, I'd do the business development and I'll do the client relationship management. And I'll also be, for a long time, I was also the project manager before we decided that it was time to start hiring dedicated project managers. So it was very much kind of, it just happened. We just set out to work together, very much driven by financial stability. Like we wanted to make money. Money making was our first and foremost driver for us because we had to make our living, and everything else just clicked. Right. And of course, I make it sound very simple, and it wasn't. There was a lot of ups and downs, very high peaks and very low valleys along the route, but we've learned a lot. So I hope I can share some of those lessons today.
Yes. So my next question then follows: what's the most misunderstood aspect of building and scaling remote tech teams, in your opinion?
Yeah, well, I think the biggest misunderstanding is people think that when you build remote, that means cheap or like low cost. And in fact, if you want to build a successful remote first company, it cannot be cheap. It cannot be low cost. You have to invest. Yes, you can argue that you can benefit from global talent pool. And of course, in some areas of the world, still the salaries are a bit lower. The expectations are a bit lower than in the US. But I got to be honest with you, COVID was actually the big equalizer. Prior to COVID, yes, you could probably hire, senior level developer for maybe $3,000-4,000 a month and kind of know that they would be happy for many, many years. Now this is the 3,000-4,000. This is where you start, right? So yes, it's still more affordable for a US-based company to have offshore development in maybe Europe and Asia and Latin America has been growing over the past couple of years. But outside of just paying for talent, you also have to invest into creating the culture of the company, which means, having frequent offsites and kind of retreats or situations where you all come together and you actually get to know one another and you spend meaningful amount of time with each other in person. It also means investing into technology that helps you communicate on a daily basis. It means investing into education and kind of professional development of your teammates, because you have to make up for that lack of unity in the way that comes from being in the office, and you have to make up for it by giving other opportunities and by creating, like I said, like cultural benefits that the company will, like your employees will cherish and enjoy.
Very good point. So how do you build a sense of ownership and accountability across time zones? You know, I
So,
mean,
yeah.
your operations are far flung. So how do you do that?
So back in 2019, I came across an excellent book, or maybe it was 2017, and the book is called Reinventing Organizations, and it is by Frederick Laloux. And I highly recommend everyone listening this podcast to read that book. It's an amazing book that basically talks about different types of organization, and he color codes all those organizations. You know, from red being something like the army, right? Very hierarchical, very authoritative, and like all the way down to, or I would even argue up to teal, like the color teal. And teal organization means an organization that doesn't rely on middle management for the creation of that sense of ownership and accountability, but rather empowers the employees themselves. And I got so excited when I read that book, and I said, "Oh my God, this is the type of organization I want to have, right? This is how I want JetRockets to function." And so, in early 2019, we started to transition our entire organization towards the Teal organizational principles. Now, it wasn't easy because remember, I had a large portion of my team being from, former Soviet Union. And there are very big cultural differences between people from former or, still authoritative states versus, free countries like the US. And it took a while for us to actually instill that sense of accountability and ownership into our to our people. And not everyone had succeeded, because the thing that people are afraid the most is with ownership comes accountability. Right? And nobody wants to be responsible for a failure, for example. So the first thing that we had to change in our mind is that there's no such thing as failure, right? We can all make mistakes, but if we want to be an effective organization that grows and supports and nourishes our employees, we have to allow them to make mistakes. Because if they don't make mistakes, they don't learn, right? So now, how do we do that without losing our clients? Because if we keep making mistakes, I mean, we won't have any clients, right? So there are ways to control it, but first and foremost is radical transparency. Radical transparency within the company, but also with our clients. And we accomplish that by all of our employees get to know our clients in person. Like if you hire JetRockets, you don't just deal with the manager, like somebody in the middle, just talking to you about the product that you want to build and then takes it back to the team. No such thing. What you end up doing, you end up working with each individual developer, with each individual designer, QA engineer, anybody who's involved on your project, you get to know them. That allows to develop this interpersonal connection, interpersonal relationship that creates room for some mistakes, right? Now, because you know the person, you connect to them on a human level, you understand that, yes, we're all human, we can all make mistakes. And as long as we are honest with one another, and as long as we are transparent, and as long as we own up to those mistakes and fix them immediately, right? Resolve them and make sure to never repeat the same mistake again. There is room, there's flexibility in our work to push ourselves outside the box, even if it means taking a risk sometimes, right? So basically, this was a long-winded answer to say that we create accountability by creating personal connection with our clients, but also by making people accountable to one another within the team. So all of our projects are organized as project teams, right? So if I don't do my part of the job, I'm going to directly affect my teammate, my colleague. And I don't want to do that because I don't want to make them upset, right? So there is this kind of camaraderie that gets created, where people don't want to let each other down, when people want to do the best work possible, but also the culture where people are not afraid to make mistakes. Now, that's not to say we have zero accountability and people can just slack off and like not do their job. We follow, I'm a big fan of the EOS approach to kind of organization management. And we have a three strike system, right? If somebody makes a really big mistake, then we have a performance review and kind of performance improvement plan, and people have 3 chances to improve. And historically we've let go maybe a handful of people throughout the history of the company for performance issues, but it's still pretty rare.
That was a very insightful answer to the question, and an intelligent process that you've gone through for certain. So what communication systems, drilling down a little bit, the comm systems and the rituals have helped you stay aligned?
Well, Slack. We are big fans of Slack. Amazing tool, great tool. We pay for professional version of Slack, and I think we all live and breathe in Slack. So Slack has been our main mode of communication within our company, with both within the company itself and also with our clients. So we have the way we organize our Slack. It's each and every project gets its own channel in Slack. Right. And actually we get 2 channels, one internal channel for the team to communicate internally, and one external channel with the client, where the client communicates with the same team, right? And this creates an ability to really be constantly connected asynchronously, despite the time zone difference. The fact that most of my team members right now are on the east to the US, that actually creates an advantage for us, because typically the team is ahead of time from our clients, right? So typically the team is able to report towards kind of the end of the day on their progress, have a meeting scheduled towards the end of their workday, which gives them an opportunity to kind of come with like new status updates and showcase the progress that has been made since the last time the team has met together, and also create a list of questions or homework for our clients, because our clients are very much involved in the development process, and I believe that is very important for them to be if they want the project to be successful. And so this gives them now like the second part of their day, the whole afternoon, to get the answers and complete the homework assignment and whatnot. So then the next morning when the team comes back to work, they have a new set of information to work with. So Slack has been our most relied upon mode of communication. And in terms of rituals, we do daily sync ups. If your listeners are familiar with Scrum process and like daily stand-ups, so we do sort of a version of that. What we do is a daily sync up, when each and every person on the project just does a daily kind of like a short Slack message for the entire team to see what have they accomplished yesterday, what are they working on today, are they running into any issues. And we also, in some teams, come up with like cute little things like, different emojis for like their mood, or like, how you feeling today? And, people have different emojis going on. We also have several kind of social Slack channels, things like music share, right? Where people share the types of music they're listening to right now. So we can all kind of sign up and, click on the same link, and we can all listen to the same song together as we work. We have a kind of like a daily channel where we can just pose questions to one another. Hey, what did you do this morning at 9 a.m.? And people can share photos of themselves at 9 a.m. because, it just sounds fun, right? So like we create tiny little check-ins throughout the day just to remind everyone that we are humans, we work together, we may live, many, many miles away, but we're still well connected. One of my favorite sort of rituals is that towards the holiday season, we have our own advent calendar happening. And the way it works is maybe starting with the second week of December, we post in one of our channels a question to the entire company. So, and that question could be, hey, share a photo of yourself at age 7. Right. And so everyone comes and shares a photo. Or what did you want to be when you grew up, when you were 9? Or, stuff like that. Or what are your goals for 2026? And what did you promise yourself in 2025 but haven't accomplished? Stuff like that allows us all to get to know each other just a little bit better.
Very nice approach. Got some good ideas there. Have there been any cultural or management shifts as your team has grown globally?
Oh, so many.
The top few in
Yes.
each category.
Yes. So as I already mentioned, in 2019, we made the big leap towards Teal organizations. By 2023, we had grown to 87 people. And being Teal became difficult. Not impossible, but difficult. And so I felt like, oh my God, we need to start hiring some middle management, right? Like just some people to be in charge, because when too many cooks in the pot, like in the kitchen,
Yep.
things get lost, right? So in 2023, we made every possible mistake of a growing company, meaning we hired a bunch of middle managers. We made bad hiring decisions, learned a lot in the process, but 2023 going into 2024 was a big kind of like reckoning for us as a company, when we had to admit to ourselves that we were not ready to grow that big, because we did not simply have the skill to get that big, or the guidance, right? And we weren't comfortable anymore. And the people I've placed in certain key roles did not fit as well as I was hoping they would. And I, as the CEO, have given away control too soon and too much of it. And so by early 2025, or actually late 2024, early 2025, we started to roll back some of these changes. So we're now down to about 45 employees. I've regained some of the control that I've given away. And I believe that we are now back on track to where we were when I believe we were functioning at our best. And we will continue to grow, but we will do it very differently this time. Very slowly, very, like one person at a time. And I will no longer hire. There was a time when I hired like 10 people in a month. How do you successfully onboard 10 people in a month as a small organization? I don't know. I did not have the right answer. We kind of relied on, hey, we're going to throw you in because we have our beautiful Notion workspace where everything is described. We have all of our SOPs. We have all of our information. You can just find stuff, right? No, absolutely not. People need to be, guided. People need to have their hands held, and that's okay. That's okay. And so now when we bring a person on board, we make sure to give them plenty of time to onboard. We make sure to give them as much help as we need, to connect them with as many people as we feel are necessary to make them feel that they have completely and fully integrated into the company before putting them on like significant project work or anything like that. Yeah.
I'm sure that was even more difficult because you're globally distributed. So that onboarding process is even more important, right? So,
Well, for some reason, David, I thought that if I had a very nice, easy to follow Notion document.
I've got the same Notion, by the way.
and people kind of go through it and they have to put a check mark next to each item and acknowledge that, yep, I did this, I did this, I did that. And people do it, but apparently it wasn't enough.
I could see that 100%, 100%. Only because I've been through the experience myself. So that's great learnings for people who have not been through the experience. It's certainly important to take note of that. So my last question is around your advice to founders that are struggling with trust or productivity in remote settings. There's so many companies now that are, adapting to this remote environment that we've gotten used to over the years, right? And they're in the early stages of it. And I've talked to a lot of them on my podcasts and my other discovery calls, and it's a struggle. Trust and productivity in this remote environment is near and dear, but sometimes difficult to hold on to?
Yeah, well, I would start by saying that at JetRockets, we never require people to work certain hours, right? Because I trust that if you're a professional, well, first of all, when I hire, let me backtrack. When I hire a person, everybody gets 3 months of probation period, right? Because when you speak to someone during the interview, they'll say all the right things. They come across as very, capable and professional, and you bring them on board and things don't click. So everyone starts off with a 3 months probationary period, which I think is sufficient to see whether or not a person will fit in. And by the way, for our project managers, it's a little bit longer. It's a 6 months probation, because I believe it takes a bit longer for project managers to establish and assert themselves within the team. So 3 months. And within that 3 months, I explained very clearly that, look, I don't need you to be online from like 9 to 5, right? I need you to do your job. If it means that you need to work from, 11 a.m. in the morning until 2 p.m. and then, take a break and come back at night, that's what you do. Or if you need to work very early or very late or just regular hours, whatever it is that works for you, you do, as long as you get your job done. And how do we measure that? Because you have very tangible tasks. If you accomplish those tasks and your team feels that you are a team player, I have no problems, right? Like you can work from wherever, whenever, however suits you best, right? We, in terms of time tracking, for instance, many people say, well, how do I know that the person works 8 hours a day? Well, again, to me, it's less important. It's only important on projects where we bill hourly, but we don't have very many of those because we are a product development company. So again, clients don't hire us for time. Clients usually hire us for the value that we bring. And if I have an employee who is capable of bringing value within 4 hours instead of 8, good for them, right? So that's awesome. uh, so for me, what's important is that every team gets to decide on their own when to have their kind of team meetings. So as long as there's some overlap between the hours and people are able to connect with each other on a daily basis for at least like one meeting a day, that works for me, right? And so I rely on their teammates to alert their managers or myself if they feel that their new teammate isn't pulling their weight, right?
It sounds like everybody's accountable to their
It's
team, right?
well, it's hard not to be, because if you're not going to get your job done, then your teammates are going to be very unhappy with you. It's not even me. Your teammates are going to come to you and say, hey, so-and-so, why aren't you doing your job? Yeah.
It's been very, very interesting. I'm glad you shared your journey with us, Natalie. And I
Thank
want
you.
to thank you very much for taking time out of your busy schedule to talk to us about yourself and JetRockets. We wish you nothing but great success in the future.
David, thank you so much for the opportunity. I had a lot of fun.
Thank you. I'm glad you did. Bye for now, Natalie.